Chapter 1. The Maid I Didn't Order. The docking ring hummed faintly beneath Ethan Cole's boots as he keyed open a hatch to his rented quarters. The stale air of the orbital station always smelled faintly of metal and old coolant, a scent that never quite left his lungs. He was halfway through stripping off his flight jacket when the door chime pulsed a deep, alien tone, not the sharp human buzz he was used to. He frowned. He hadn't ordered anything. Not unless the glitchy translation app he'd used on the alien marketplace had done something strange again. When the door slid open, Ethan froze. A figure ducked through the doorway, tall enough to brush the ceiling. She was no droid, no meek service unit. She was alien, skin like polished obsidian catching the neon light from the corridor, eyes of molten amber that seemed to burn with some inner fire. Plates of ceremonial armor gleamed across her shoulders, and at her hip hung a blade curved like a crescent moon. Her voice rolled like thunder. "I am Kirillith. By contract, I serve you." Ethan blinked. "Serve me? Wait! No. You're supposed to be a maid. A housekeeper. You know, cleaning." He gestured lamely at the scattered mess of ration packs and the pile of laundry crumpled against the wall. Kirillith's gaze swept the room, nostrils flaring at the human clutter. She stepped inside with the certainty of someone entering her own home. "Pathetic chaos," she murmured, not unkindly. Then louder, "Your dwelling will be restored. Your honor defended." "Honor?" Ethan let out a short laugh, half nervous. "Lady, I just wanted someone to scrub the grease off my cooking unit." She ignored him, gliding across the cramped quarters and lifting a cracked mug between clawed fingers. She examined it as though it were a relic. Unworthy vessel. This will be destroyed. Before he could protest, she crushed it easily and dropped the shards into the recycler. Ethan rubbed his temple. "Great. So I hired a maid and got a demolition crew." Her amber eyes snapped back to him, fierce and unyielding. "Not maid. Protector. You are mine." The words hung heavy in the recycled air. The station's hum seemed louder, pressing into the silence between them. Ethan's mouth went dry. "Yours?" he said carefully, as though testing an airlock seal before stepping through. "That's not how humans do things." Kirillith tilted her head, hair of dark tendrils slipping like liquid metal over her shoulder. "Among my people, to serve is to claim. You are under my shadow. No harm will touch you while I breathe." Ethan swallowed hard. He'd faced pirate raids, burned-out engines, even near starvation on long hauls. But nothing had prepared him for the intensity of those molten eyes, the certainty in her voice. Maybe he should send her back, file a complaint, demand a refund. But as the corridor echoed with distant shouts and the hiss of a malfunctioning vent, Ethan noticed how Kirillith's hand never strayed far from her blade, how her stance angled subtly between him and the door. For the first time in a long while, he realized he wasn't alone, and that unsettled him more than anything. Chapter 2. The Alien Who Rearranged My Life. The orbital station never really slept. Outside Ethan's narrow viewport, 1,000 neon signs pulsed against the black curve of the planet below. Traders, smugglers, pilgrims, and mercenaries all moved through its labyrinth of metal corridors, and every sound, hydraulics hissing, engines groaning, voices echoing in half a dozen languages, seemed to seep through the thin walls of his rented quarters. Inside, though, it was too quiet. Ethan stirred awake to find his bunk neatly remade beneath him, sheets tucked so tightly he could barely move. The stale smell of sweat and machine oil that clung to his room was gone, replaced with a faint mineral tang, like wet stone after rain. Kirillith was already awake, crouched on the floor with inhuman poise. She was scrubbing a panel of the bulkhead with something that glowed faintly in her palm, an alien solvent that ate away years of grime in seconds. The hum of her low chant filled the room, a ritualistic rhythm that seemed less about cleaning and more about consecration. "You don't have to do that," Ethan muttered, swinging his legs off the bunk. Kirillith didn't look up. "Your walls were dishonored. They must be purified. They're just walls." He reached for a ration bar, only to find the stash was gone. "Wait, where's my food?" She rose in a fluid motion, towering over him. The nutrient blocks were unworthy. Polluted. I procured replacements. She gestured to a pack sitting on the counter, filled with alien fruits that glistened like shards of ruby and gold. Ethan picked one up, wary. "These things gonna kill me? They will strengthen you." Her gaze softened, just for an instant. "Your kind is fragile." He snorted. "Fragile? I've survived hyperspace storms, half a dozen engine fires, and one very angry customs inspector." But she had already turned, reorganizing the shelves into sharp geometric patterns. His mismatched mugs were gone, replaced with shining metal cups etched in curling alien script. Even his laundry, half a pile of shirts stained with coolant, was missing. "You burned my clothes, didn't you?" Ethan asked flatly. Kirillith inclined her head. "They bore battle scars unfit for you. New garments will come." "This isn't housekeeping," Ethan said, pacing the room. "This is the hostile takeover." Her amber eyes flared, catching the dim light. "You misunderstand. In my people's ways, to serve is to guard is to shape. I must ensure you stand worthy." Before he could argue, a harsh knock rattled the door. The low thrum of station tension spiked in Ethan's chest. He knew that sound. Dockside thugs, shaking down newcomer for credits. The door slid open before he could stop it. 3 aliens stumbled in, tusked, reeking of cheap engine fuel. "Human," one growled. "You pay tribute for breathing our air." Ethan's stomach dropped. He'd dealt with his kind before, always messy. But before he could move, Kirillith stepped forward. Her hand moved like lightning, blade hissing free with a sound that cut through the recycled air. In a blur, she had one thug pinned against the wall. Steel pressed his throat. Her voice was low, deadly calm. "This human is mine. Touch him and bleed." The thugs froze, eyes darting between the towering alien woman and Ethan, who stood rooted in shock. Finally, they slunk back, muttering curses as the door hissed shut behind them. Silence returned, broken only by Ethan's ragged breath. Kirillith sheathed her blade, her expression unreadable. "You see now," she said softly. "Your honor must be guarded." Ethan swallowed hard, adrenaline still surging. He wanted to shout at her, to tell her she'd just made things worse, that she wasn't his owner. But deep down, beneath the fear, there was a flicker of something else. For the first time since he docked here, he felt safe, and that scared him more than the thugs ever could. Chapter 3, Bound by Misunderstanding. The marketplace spread like a maze beneath the station's central dome. Neon lights bled into one another, emerald, violet, crimson, painting the air with a perpetual glow. The scent of alien spices clung to Ethan's nose, sharp and metallic, while the low gravity made every step feel like walking on a half-forgotten dream. He hated crowds. They pressed too close, voices and strange tongues buzzing like static. But Kirillith strode at his side with effortless dominance, cutting a path through the throng. Every alien that glanced their way seemed to stiffen, then lower their gaze. Ethan thought it was the armor, the blade strapped at her hip, the sheer presence of her. Then he heard it. "She keeps a human," one merchant whispered. "Poor creature." Another said, laughter curling around the words. Ethan's jaw tightened. His cheeks burned as Kirillith gestured for a stallkeeper to step aside, then introduced him with proud finality. "This one is mine." The words hit him like a plasma round the chest. Heads turned. A few chuckles echoed through the market. He felt their eyes on him. Not as Ethan Cole, cargo pilot, survivor of bad deals and worse storms, but as a possession. He stopped walking. What did you just say? Kirillith turned, confusion flickering across her features. I named you. You are under my claim. That's not protection. Ethan snapped, louder than he meant to. That's slavery. A hush spread around them. Aliens slowed, pausing to watch. The station hum was suddenly deafening. Kirillith's expression hardened, like obsidian under pressure. You insult my honor. I shield you. I feed you. I cast aside my own house, so you would not be unclaimed prey. Ethan shook his head, hands trembling. You don't get it. Humans don't belong to anyone. We don't need someone to own us. We choose who we stand with. That's what makes us. His voice cracked. That's what makes us human. For the first time, doubt crossed her face. She opened her mouth, then the alarm screamed. The docking bays erupted in chaos. Sirens howled, red lights spilling across the corridors. The ground shuddered under their boots. Ethan glimpsed it through a viewport. Pirates, sleek ships latching onto the outer ring, tearing to the hull like carrion feeders. Panic surged in the crowd. Merchants grabbed wares, children wailed, and the market dissolved into chaos. In half-gravity, bodies collided in slow, desperate waves. Kirillith pulled her blade free, stance ready. But before she could move, a detonation rocked the corridor. The air buckled. A hull breach. A group of civilians screamed as the emergency barrier flickered, threatening to fail. Ethan didn't think. He bolted forward, shoving through the stampede. Seal the panel, he shouted, diving for a manual override lever. His fingers burned on the cold alloy, but he yanked with every ounce of strength he had. The barrier sealed just as the vacuum threatened to tear the onlookers into space. The crowd gasped. Kirillith stared at him, amber eyes wide with something raw. Shock, maybe even awe. You risked your life, she whispered. Ethan, panting, leaned against the wall. Yeah, because that's what humans do. We don't wait to be told, we act. For once, she had no answer. And for the first time since she'd arrived, Ethan saw not just a warrior, not just a protector, but a woman unsure of everything she thought she knew. Chapter 4, The Cost of Loyalty. The station's upper promenade glittered like a jewel wrapped in shadows. Transparent alloy panels framed the endless void, while alien lanterns hung in clusters, casting fractured light over the walkways. Ethan leaned against the railing, watching shuttles drift in and out of the docks below. Each one was an escape route he couldn't afford. Ever since the pirate raid, the whispers hadn't stopped. The human who refused ownership. The human who defied a warrior caste. Some laughed, others sneered, but a few, too many, saw opportunity. He felt it in the way merchants eyed him, calculating. He heard it in the conversations that trailed behind him. Imagine having a human who dared speak against a warrior. Imagine owning him. The thought made Bao rise in his throat. Behind him, Kirillith stood silent, a shadow draped in armor. Her blade caught the lantern light, her eyes brighter still. She had barely spoken since the raid, and when she did, it was clipped, controlled, like someone reciting orders. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. They think I'm some kind of prize. Her jaw tightened. You are. He turned, anger flashing. Not like that. Her gaze didn't waver. Humans, you do not see your rarity. A being who acts without command. Who risks life for strangers. Many here would pay dearly to claim such a spirit. Ethan's stomach sank. And what? You're just, what? Negotiating behind my back to see who pays the most. She flinched, just barely, but enough for him to see it. Kirillith. His voice cracked. Tell me you didn't. Silence. The promenade felt suddenly too small. the hum of engines pressing into his chest. She looked away, and in that single motion, he had his answer. "You said you were protecting me," he whispered, voice raw. "But all this time, you've just been protecting your claim." Kira stepped forward, hand outstretched. "Ethan," he recoiled. "Don't. Just don't." The air between them was heavier than the void beyond the glass. He turned and walked, boots echoing on the metallic floor, carrying him into the neon glow of the lower levels. His chest felt hollow, his breath uneven. Rain fell from malfunctioning vents, turning the streets into a haze of steam and light. He moved without direction, past stalls shuddering for night, past faces that stared too long. For the first time since she'd barged into his life, Kirillith wasn't at his side, and he realized with cold ache that he missed the sound of her steps guarding his back. Above him, a shuttle roared through the artificial sky. He watched it disappear into the void, wondering if he should have taken one. If humans like him would ever belong in a galaxy that treated everything as a transaction. The station lights blurred in his vision. He told himself it was just the rain. Chapter 5. The Human Who Could Not Be Owned. Ethan woke to the taste of iron in his mouth, and the cold bite of restraints locking his wrist behind him. The air was thick with ozone, humming with the vibration of a ship not meant for passengers. The slavers hadn't been subtle. One moment a stunned blast to the back in the rain-slicked streets. The next he was here, chained in the belly of some rusted freighter that smelled of sweat and fear. Around him, other captives huddled, scaled, feathered, furred, their alien eyes dimmed with resignation. None spoke. The slavers had broken them long before the cage. But not Ethan. His pulse hammered with fury. "I am not theirs." The ship shuddered as it hit turbulence in hyperspace. The guards outside laughed in their guttural tongue, the scrape of boots echoing along the metal deck. They didn't bother checking the humans often. They thought he was weak, small, harmless. That mistake would cost them. Ethan's eyes darted around the hold. Vents overhead whispered with recycled air. A cracked panel near the floor exposed faint wiring, sparking at intervals. His wrists ached, but the bindings weren't sealed alloys. They were old-cuff steel and lock-based. Sloppy. He shuffled closer to the wiring, ignoring the hiss warnings of a scaled prisoner. One sharp edge was all he needed. He pressed his wrist down, grinding metal against metal until sparks bit his skin. The pain was white-hot, but the lock gave way with a metallic snap. The other captives stared. One whispered something in awe. Ethan didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. "You want to get out?" he muttered. "Then stay quiet." The vent was his way. He pulled it open, wriggling inside, the cold metal scraping his arms. The ship's hum was louder here, every vibration rattling his bones. Zero-gravity pockets made him lurch, tumbling silently through shafts that smelled of burnt dust. He reached a maintenance junction, cables glowing faintly with energy. With a grin, Ethan yanked one free. The lights flickered across the ship, alarms chirping. Chaos erupted in the corridor beyond. Shouts, the slam of boots, the thrum of weapons powering up. Ethan crawled out of the vent and pounced, catching one slaver off guard. He swung the cable like a whip, sparks arcing as it wrapped around the alien's throat. The body dropped, twitching. Ethan seized the weapon from its holster, an ugly plasma pistol, humming in his grip. The other slaver spun, snarling, but Ethan fired. The recoil bruised his shoulder, the smell of burnt ozone filling his nose. The alien fell. The ship was his now. Kirillith found him minutes later, storming through the breached airlock with her clan at her back. But she stopped in her tracks when she saw the bodies on the deck, saw Ethan standing there with the weapon, breathing hard but unbroken. "You escaped," she said softly, almost disbelieving. Ethan's jaw was set. "I don't wait for rescue. Not from you. Not from anyone." Her amber eyes burned, but not with pride of ownership this time. Something else. Something deeper. For the first time, Kirillith bowed her head. Then you are no possession. You are greater. The prisoners behind Ethan murmured, their voices rising in a tide of awe. The human had done what none of them dared. And in that moment, Ethan realized something that sent a shiver through him. Humans weren't just survivors. They were impossible to break. Chapter 6, More Than a Maid. The station's docking ring spun slowly against the backdrop of the stars. From his quarters, Ethan could see the planet below glowing in streaks of gold and blue, the neon spires of the orbital city clinging to its edge like fireflies. The hum of engines and life support systems vibrated faintly through the metal floor, a constant reminder that everything here was borrowed: air, gravity, safety. He sat at the table, a chipped mug of real coffee steaming in his hands. The fight with the slavers, the escape, the fire in his blood, all felt like a fever dream now. Only the ache in his muscles proved it had been real. The door slid open without a sound. Kirillith stepped inside, slower than usual, armor stripped away, blade sheathed. She looked taller without her war paint of steel and ritual, her dark skin gleaming like polished stone under the glow of the viewport. For the first time since she had barged into his life, she seemed unsure of herself. I should not have left you to be taken, she said quietly. Her voice was lower, stripped of thunder. I thought I was guarding you, but I was guarding my pride. Ethan took a slow sip, eyes never leaving hers. Yeah, I figured that out. She flinched at the bluntness, but didn't look away. Among my kind, to serve as a claim, but you shattered that truth. You broke your chains with nothing but fire in your hands. No clan, no blade, no oath could do the same. Ethan set the mug down, the sound sharp in the silence. He stood, closing the space between them. I don't want to be owned, Kirillith. Not by you, not by anyone. But his voice softened. I don't want to be alone either. Her amber eyes widened, molten light flickering like twin suns. Slowly, almost reverently, she sank to one knee, a gesture that sent a jolt through him. The great warrior who had frightened merchants and silenced thugs now knelt in his cluttered quarters. I do not own you, she whispered, but I will stand beside you if you allow it. Not as maid, not as master, as something more. Ethan's throat tightened. He reached down, offering his hand. She hesitated, then took it, her clawed fingers careful around his smaller, human grip. He pulled her to her feet. Through the viewport, a freighter slid into dock, its lights casting shifting shadows across the room. Beyond it, the endless sea of stars stretched on, full of danger, full of promise. Ethan smiled faintly. Guess that makes us partners. Kirillith's lips curved, sharp yet warm. No, Ethan Cole. That makes us equals. The Engine's hum deepened. A heartbeat in the metal. He felt it in his bones, the pulse of a new beginning. Humanity's stubborn spark had carved out a place in a galaxy that thought it already knew the rules. And for the first time, Ethan believed he wasn't just surviving anymore. He was living. The station's observation deck was almost empty at this hour, the glass dome stretching above like a cathedral of stars. Beyond it, alien constellations burned strange and bright, their light spilling across Ethan's face. The hum of the engines below was steady, like a heartbeat anchoring him in a galaxy that never stopped moving. Kirillith stood beside him, no armor, no blade, just herself. For weeks she had been his shadow, his captor, his protector. Now, she was simply there, watching the endless dark as though seeing it anew. You broke every chain I tried to place on you, she said, voice low, reverent. And still you let me stay. Ethan's lips curved, not quite a smile, but close. Maybe that's the point. Humans don't belong in cages, Kirillith. We belong out there, choosing, fighting, falling, getting back up. He turned, catching her molten gaze. And sometimes we belong with someone who won't let us face the void alone. For a heartbeat, silent stretched, filled only by the faint pulse of artificial gravity and the distant murmur of alien voices drifting through the deck. Then Kirillith reached out, her hand finding his, careful but sure. Through the viewport, a freighter lit its drives, painting their faces in firelight. Two shadows side by side. "I do not own you," she whispered, "but I will walk your path until the stars burn out." Ethan squeezed her hand, eyes fixed on the infinite horizon. "Then let's give them something to remember." The engines roared beneath them, and the galaxy opened wide.